Well, I understand the sort of sex issue to be strayed away from the church, but I've met people who actually are still part of the Catholic church community and Baptist and Christian church communities, and they are identify as transgender, homosexual, and unidentified. So it's I see that some people are still close to their church, but I can see why they would want to separate from the church since it's not very clear to some churches if they accept them or do they reject them. I have a cousin who identifies himself as a homosexual, and being raised and being in a smaller mindset in the village where my family lives, they didn't accept him. They rejected him purely because he was a homosexual. We've known him for years, and we've loved him. We do. I still love him, but my family just cut him off. They don't accept it, and that was one of the biggest reasons why my cousin left and chose to be himself.
There's a proliferation of socially liberal faith institutions in the United States that increasingly adopt pro same-sex marriage stances. It's not uncommon to drive by a religious institution and see an "All are welcome here" banner with the rainbow flag. Faith institutions have begun to, there's a diversity, they're increasingly diversifying. That would mean that millennials who have more socially liberal values would be able to find a faith institution that would match their values. Perhaps in certain areas, where the faith institutions, perhaps in more small town communities that are more socially conservative, where the faith institutions, there aren't the options for, it's either you go to this faith institution, this church, which is anti-same-sex marriage, anti-gay, etc., anti-choice in terms of women's reproductive rights, or you either go to that or you drop out. Perhaps in certain communities that explains it, but in large urban centers, and certainly in the coastal areas like California, New York, and whatnot, there's so many choices. Socially liberal people can stay religious. If the decrease in millennials who are Catholic, that can be attributed somewhat to social conservatism in the Catholic Church, because I think the Catholic Church, even though mainline institution up until the recent Pope, has been very socially conservative, and then the current Pope is starting to make some movements towards more of a socially progressive positions. But so there's probably some millennials who were raised Catholic who found themselves pro-choice or pro-same-sex marriage or what have you, who decided that they couldn't reconcile the
illegal, it shouldn't be done. Abortion, the church is definitely not for abortion, and so it's kind of I don't want to say funneling, but just their ideas stand strong to the church as a group.
Yeah.
And so doesn't leave room for individual thought.
Okay.
You have to follow the church's ideas, or else you won't. Then you're not part of that church, and then you're you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so so for abortion, church is definitely against it, and then maybe there are some Catholics that are pro-abortion.
It's not really pro-abortion.
If someone came about to me with abortion, I'm definitely against abortion.
Okay.
I don't think you should do that.
Okay.
But I'm still Catholic. You know what I mean? So it's not just because the church is saying you have to be this. It's not going to make me want to be not religious, because we still have
Marriage.
Well, so yeah, the church totally is against same-sex marriage. It's but for millennials, how do you say? Millennials, if you guys if people see it as if you're against it or not against it, is church is religious. They have all different rule beliefs, but you could and plus Christianity I don't really see for a study we did in Global, you know, like with the First Amendment, people have like the right to say
Yeah, right.
God hates fags, and they're allowed to like preach that.
Yeah.
But like for a Catholic like who believes in God, like I'm kind of like, all right, well, I mean, they actually believe that, so I don't really support like that 100%. You know what I mean? But for other people to like say like that kind of just makes like Christianity look bad. You know what I mean? And so I can kind of see where people like say, all right, I don't want to believe in that because they seem like a bunch of self-centered, you know, people because they're just, you know, picketing like God hates fags, but like not everyone's like that. Like me and myself.
Perspective of these two things opposing one another, right? The science that children learn in school doesn't have to oppose the faith that their parents espouse at home. And it's really only adults that put these kids in a position where they have to make these choices. They're not concerned about their contradictions. And if we had an in-depth understanding of both of these aspects of our lives, then I don't think that we would be concerned by how they contradict one another either. I think people have a casual understanding of Christianity and a casual understanding of science, both of which result in, you know, this misunderstanding that you have to choose between one or the other.
So the church is now part of science, and she knows that things are developing. Yeah. And as that spacecraft go further out and start bringing us more information, we have to adjust to the scientific things that we know. So if our new discovery says that the chapter in this book is totally wrong and it's all fiction, we're not going, oh my God, I did that. I was like, there's a message in that story. The story is not real.
I've actually seen someone stray away from the church because he believes soundly in science. And since I like being a sort of non-biased sort of view to him, I told him that basically believing in religion is believing in something you can't see. But you believe in science, so you believe in atoms and neutrons and protons and electrons, but you can't see them yourself. So how is believing in science different than believing in church? That's what I pointed out to him, and I wasn't trying to change his mind because I strictly stand as atheist, and I like defending both sides because it seems like a fairer perspective, and it just causes less conflict if you just look at both ways.
So science doesn't ultimately prevent that, nor does it answer those underlying ethical, spiritual questions that human beings have. So given those two caveats, one that we should look, or you should look at the impact on the late 1800s, early 1900s, and secondly, that science and technology doesn't fill that void. Again, my experience is this area, but I would say probably across the country you can see what studies show on this, but there probably have a slight bias towards socially liberal secular values, right? Like, in other words, more public school teachers are going to be Democrat than Republican. More, the atmosphere in public schools is going to be more geared towards secular understandings of reality.
And the school should just stick with what do our children need to learn to get in life to be successful, minus anything spiritual, because that's a home-based thing.
Okay. I mean, because the big fight now is kind of like separating it from like public things, like school, like religion in schools, maybe religion in public office, those kind of things. Right. So like you're kind of saying that it shouldn't have been involved in the first place, right? Right.
And the same thing, we have an issue going on here now. And basically, let's say I'm in city council. I'm dealing with the whole entire public, and I have various type of religions, and political
faiths,
right? So if I want to open up city council with a prayer, what I should be actually doing, this is my opinion, okay, is that city council meeting starts at 9 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, we will have a neutral prayer of silence or whatever.
Moment of silence. Okay.
Or whatever. And you can do whatever you want. You can think about a ball game, you can think about God, you can think about Muhammad, whatever. And at 9:03, we go to business. So anybody who don't even want to be in the part of moment of silence, open the doors and let them in.
Because I was planning. I can't do it this week because I have to do a college thing. But every month I do the soup kitchen. I know before we started we actually can circle hold hands. We have a moment of silence because we
Various kids of faith
yeah,
are coming there
and it's
because
really
they want
cool
a social issue, helping out a religious institution. The religion has, well, it's a two-way thing also, is because I am a atheist going to help out the soup kitchen because I'm a social action person.
Yeah.
But the only soup kitchen around is the Salvation Army or the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And I'm going to know that
Today there are a lot of children, right? We're not even talking about like university level. There are children whose faith is challenged on a daily basis in their public schools. And yeah, this is difficult. I mean, these are challenges that young people are having today with regard to the relationship, of their academic life and their faith that previous generations have never had. So is it affecting religion as a whole, the Christian church as a whole especially? Yeah, it definitely is.
I remember reading this article that from nations across the world, they surveyed people, and if they believe that it's okay or it's not okay to have religion in the country. And
in the country or in the school?
Like in the country, but it was like taken from high schoolers and like kids and adults.
Okay.
And a lot of the religious countries like Iraq and sort of like Middle East and that area, they kind of believed, the general public believed that we should have less of religious views. But if they took the survey here, people actually want more religious views from the country, and I thought that was interesting since we like to have diversity, in our nation, but people want a specific religion to relate to, and I thought that was really interesting to sort of point out. But in schools, like, it's kind of hard since public schools, like, people from all over are coming to a public school, and it's really hard to focus down on one religion or one way of living. And it'd be really unfair for everybody to conform to, let's say, Buddhism, believing in like deities and like Buddha, and not having one god or having no gods. And I think that would be a hard adjustment, and there will be a lot of chaos since we already have so many people coming in from all over the place.
Actually, even more so, like, kind of would get somebody to start believing in religion, because public school, I mean, you don't necessarily
like you're more exposed to a lot of different
you're exposed to different religions, and like, hey, maybe you can like meet like Judaism, like, maybe you want to go there, or like Buddhism. I don't know. Okay. But I'm sure we do have Buddhists at the school, but that's cool, because it's public school, and so I think it actually would, kind of make more people like be exposed to it because you're exposed to it.
Well, would you say that makes them would you say that makes them more religious or more religiously conscious?
Conscious, yeah,
more
definitely. Yeah, because I mean, they're not like gonna, meet me one day and just be like, hey, I want to go. But like, there's people like me who are like, hey, come to my youth group. Who are like, who will like, because like many religions are like called to like bring other people in to like to show them like what they're missing out on, I suppose. But yeah, definitely makes me more religiously conscious, and that's cool.
More religiously conscious, okay.
Yeah, because when I moved here, I was more, back in New York, like it's a lot of Catholics, but out here, like just exposed to, like Chinese culture and their like beliefs, like Indian, I don't know not necessarily like like the certain
Hinduism.
Hindu is that it? I don't know. But yeah, it's cool. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Without God, there is no virtue because there's no prompting of the conscience. Without God, we're mired in the material, that flat world that tells us only what the senses perceive. Without God, there is a coarsening of the society. And without God, democracy will not and cannot long endure.
The new right saw itself as taking America back to its traditional values and greatness, and part of that was, of course, through new right leaders such as Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson, who were part of the sort of right-wing Christian element of that, were part of that. And of course, Reagan himself openly supported prayer in school. And so their parents, who are increasingly almost more like my age now, like people in their mid-40s or early 50s, their parents were probably people who were less religious in the 80s than their parents were in the 50s.
Yeah.
So then their parents probably raised them to...
My take on the 1960s was it was not about religion, but organized religion was in the line of fire because part of its structure was what was the youth at that movement were against, and it was against authority.
I think there are a lot less like hardcore religious people. Like you see less of that since before, like in the 60s and 50s, you had people who have been religious for centuries and they practice that. But since they're more exposed to more people, it's a valid perspective to see people become less religious.